Hey, this is Donald Jenkins, your Master Purpose Development Coach and the CEO of the Purpose Development Institute in Atlanta, Georgia. And welcome to the Liability Responsible for People Not Turning Setbacks into Comebacks with Video webinar. Hey, listen, I'm excited that you took some time to get some very important insight that I'm sure that by the end of this video, you're going to find to be of tremendous value to your organization. And from someone who have had a fair amount of setbacks in their life, I want to be the first to thank you for being on the front lines of helping people turn their setbacks into comebacks. So what I'm going to do in this webinar, I'm going to show you how the Purpose Development Institute can add value to the mission of your organization so that you can continue to provide the services that you have provided for years, but also add an additional service that these individuals need. They need it in a tremendous way to be able to put themselves in a better position to leverage the help that you are providing within your organization. So before I unpack what we're going to be talking about in this video in regards to the liability, I want to give you my personal story, the story that, I had an opportunity to experience just 12 years ago, in which I found myself ending a 20-year marriage that left me homeless, broke, busted, and disgusted. And I have a very important thought, that's related to that particular story that's near and dear to my heart. And I'm sure that, you would find it to be something of value for your organization and the people that you're working with. And the thought goes like this. It says, helping people that are in need is one of the most noble deeds in the world. And being a homeless person, a former homeless person, I certainly can understand, the opportunities, or when we, get into the point of our life where we really need help from other people. It's one of the most humbling experiences that anyone could ever go through. I know it was for me, having gone from, a prominent position to finding myself, in a very precarious situation after ending that 20-year marriage. And the rest of the statement goes like this. It says, however, helping them to develop a strong sense of purpose will help them change their world. I'm going to say that again. Helping people that are in need is one of the most noble deeds in the world. However, helping them to develop a strong sense of purpose will help them to change the world. And this is what I found myself doing in a very precarious situation, a situation that, left me very discouraged, depressed, even having suicidal thoughts, thinking that the world would be better if I just ended my life. But I can attest to the fact that having that strong sense of purpose and knowing what I know now in purpose development, it really put me on a mission to change the world. Even during that time, I, found myself, going into prison systems and, really ministering to people that are in the prison system, both men and women, giving them purpose development resources to address the liability that I'm going to be talking to you about in this video webinar. And you're going to be able to see how your organization can address that liability, because addressing that liability is what really gives them the power to change the world. I'm going to say that again. When you can address that liability, you're going to give them the power to change their world, because yes, you're helping them. You're helping them in a very precarious time of their life, but we also have to make sure that we give them power to change their world. Whether are dealing with homeless people, individuals that, have found themselves in that situation in spite of what life have thrown at them, or whether you're dealing with, prisoners, and that are making the transition, returning citizens that are making the transition from, being in prison for an extended period of time and now having to come back out into the world. This is one of the things that they need. They need to have that strong sense of purpose to change that world. That you need to be able to address that liability as you're working with them. So let's unpack this a little bit more so that now you can understand the value of building a relationship with the Purpose Development Institute. You can understand the value of our resources that we're bringing to the table. And when I'm speaking of these resources, I'm going to be very passionate because, it did apply to me. I am purpose development. Purpose development is an intricate part of my life. It was a thing that saved my life in a very precarious time that I had to experience after ending a 20-year relationship. So who are we? We are the co-founders of the Purpose Development Institute. We are think tanks. In other words, we've done your homework for you. What we're going to be talking about in regards to ending this liability or addressing this liability, we put a lot of time, money, energy into understanding why people do what they do, which is a very important research that's important for your organization. So we created the PDI SMART model to explain how social service organizations can help people turn setbacks into comebacks, because that's what you're in the business of doing. You're in the business of helping people get back up on their feet. And I can certainly attest to the fact of how purpose development is such an intricate part of helping them get back on their feet. It's the bridge to their future, because many times when we have a setback, many times individuals cannot see their future. They don't understand what that bridge look like. And they certainly need for someone to be able to help them build that bridge to their future. Now, let's unpack our model. This model is very important because it identifies recurring themes that exposes the role of purpose and help people grow from challenges in their human experience. So that's what happened to me. I didn't plan for being homeless, broke, busted, and disgusted. I ended up in that situation. Not because I volunteered to do it. It's just a situation where my ex-wife, got to a situation where, she said, "I'm tired of being married to you. I want a divorce." So it wasn't something that I planned for. I just ended up in that situation and I had to deal with it. In other words, the human experience would throw a myriad of challenges at you. But in those challenges, we have to understand how to tap into our growth potential. But here's the problem with most people is that there's a liability there that's undermining their growth potential. There's a gap in their growth potential. And as a result of that, the setback becomes an extended period of time. I was homeless for maybe 9 months, maybe around 9 months. But, I found myself, remarrying again to my business partner that you just saw on the screen, Dr. Lily, after 9 months of being in that situation, because I knew that situation was there to help me take that human experience and turn it into an opportunity for growth, so that now I can turn that setback into a comeback. I can turn that mess into a masterpiece. So we created this model from our research. We had research participants, from around the country. We had professors from different organizations, institutions that actually vetted our research, empirical research, evidence-based. We have the evidence of the recurring theme that every person that you work with, these are themes that they have within them, and you need to put your organization in a position to be able to address these themes in regards to this model. Because see, here's the thing: the difference between me and the people that you're working with is that I was working with a more efficient model, and many of the people that you're bringing into your organization, they don't have that model. So as a result of that, their setback might turn into an extended period of time. They're going to struggle to make their comeback. I didn't have to struggle that much simply because I was working with the model that I'm going to be showing you in this presentation. So that's the reason why it's going to be extremely important for you to position your organization to be a partner, with the PDI Smart Coaching community, so that now you can provide those resources as well. So you'll be able to, link what we do here at the PDI to, help rebuild the structural integrity of purpose with the services that you provide. I'm going to say it again, because when you have a setback, the structural integrity of purpose is torn apart. I'm going to say it again. When you have a setback, the structural integrity of purpose is ripped apart. And if you don't have a resource there, then it's going to be difficult to turn that into a comeback. So we made it simple for you. There's a lot of data analytics behind our research, a lot of science, but I'm not going to bore you with all of that stuff. We wanted to keep it simple. So each theme is described as the 4 purpose development checkpoints identified by the 4 colors of the triangle. So all you have to do is just remember the colors. All right. I'm going to teach you about the colors of the triangle, the 4 checkpoints that's going to put you in a very powerful position to help people turn setbacks into comebacks. Get rid of a model that's inefficient for the model that's efficient in turning their setback into a comeback. See, this is the reason why your workers need to be trained in this process. They need to be trained, number one, that's going to help themselves, and then it's going to help the clients that you're working with as well. So when your employees have a weak command, or when your clients have a weak command for the 4 checkpoints, they will struggle to exercise their growth potential to be the best version of themselves. And this is where many people are at. They have a weak command of those 4 checkpoints that you see on the triangle up here. All right, those are the 4 checkpoints. And they have a weak command for those checkpoints. Therefore, they're going to struggle. They're going to struggle to turn the setback into a comeback. They're going to struggle to be that better version of themselves. See, I continue, when I found myself in that situation, I continued to become a better version of myself, so that I didn't have any baggage that I was taking into my next relationship, because I knew that I needed to address that liability, that plagues so many people in our world. And I'm sure that you're familiar with this individual right here, Mr. Stephen Covey. He made a very important statement that you and your organization need to take notice of. It says, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. So I want you to just strip away everything you know about your clients, all right? Because I want you to focus on that thought right there. They are spiritual beings, meaning that they can exercise their growth potential, all right? They can scale their growth potential, all right? Having a human experience. Now, what you do, your organization, you provide needs and services to address, the physical needs that they might need during this particular time. But something in the human experience help allow them or cause them to get in that situation, to have that setback. So you have to make sure that you really provide all the resources that you can provide to be able to help them. Now, without purpose development, the human experience would turn into a human experiment to find the meaning of life. See, regardless of what you know about the people that you're working with, your clients, they're looking for meaning. And many people have extended periods of homelessness because they can't find meaning. They can't find meaning in life. Whatever the situation, prisoners are having a difficult time, turning that setback into a comeback because they can't find meaning when they get out of prison. Okay. So it requires purpose development, because if not, then they're going to start experimenting with different things, and they're going to go back to what they're familiar with, you see, without purpose development. So if there's any organization that need purpose development resources, the social service organization need these resources more than anything, because you're on the front line of helping people turn setbacks into comebacks. So this is one of your frontline weapons that you need, in regards to being able to provide a viable services for the people that you are working with. So here are a few objectives. Number one, identify the liability responsible for undermining growth potential. Number two, connect the checkpoints to the liability. Number three, activate the purpose business to eliminate the liability. So we're going to focus on 3 things. We're going to identify the liability, connect the checkpoints to the liability, and we're going to activate the purpose business, because many organizations, they're doing some great things, but they don't understand the importance of activating the purpose business. So we're going to talk about that throughout this presentation. Now let's unpack the liability that's responsible for the setback. In spite the service you provide, you are in the people business. I'm going to say it again. In spite whatever service that you provide, whether you're working with returning citizens, whether you're working with individuals that are in a homeless situation, individuals that, whatever that situation that they may have found themselves to be in, you're in the people business. And there's some things that you need to know about the people business, because the biggest thing that you want to know is that you want to know, how do you get the most out of people in the people business? How to get the most out of the people business? You must embrace what is known in purpose development as the source root analysis. All right. So here's the deal. You're on the front lines of, helping people turn setbacks into comebacks. So you got to start with the root, the root cause, that keep people stuck, the root cause that keep people in that particular situation. So we produce what we call the source root analysis. Now, let me explain to you what that is, because we're the only organization in the world that deals with the source root analysis. It is a detailed analysis of the Hebrew letters to identify the codes for extracting purpose out of the human experience. So for years, I've had an opportunity to have, some very prominent mentors, from around the world, through rabbinic rabbis. And, one of the things that they taught me was the importance of the Hebrew letters being codes of purpose that explains a man's or woman's journey on the earth. All right. So we have to go back to this blueprint, to look at our journey, to understand how we can troubleshoot our journey. That's the reason why we incorporated this into our research model, because we wanted to make sure that we can help organizations like you find out what those codes are. All right. So that now you can help individuals identify those codes for extracting purpose out of the human experience. So the reason why many people stay in setbacks, because they don't have the codes of extracting purpose out of the experience that got them there. I had an experience. My experience was I found myself in a situation that left me homeless, broke, busted, and disgusted. That was a very painful experience. But guess what? I had the codes. All right. I understood the codes. And that code allowed me to extract purpose out of an ugly moment, extract purpose out of a moment that devastates so many people. And that's the reason why it's important for you, your organization, to be able to build that partnership with the Purpose Development Institute, to where you either have a certified purpose development coach on staff, or you're hiring a certified purpose development coach to work with your employees on a regular basis, to be able to take them through classes and courses to train them, how to identify this liability. So the letter Hey, which is one of the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, is used to reveal the liability responsible for your client's poor response to your services, or their poor response to turning a setback into a comeback. And this letter is basically the fifth letter of the Hebrew alphabet that uses the thought, speech, and actions to expose the personal growth gap. All right. This is extremely important. Every person that you're working with within your organization, they have this gap. And it's up to your organization to not just, fulfill the physical needs, but you got to close this gap. You have to be able to close this gap. You are on the front lines of turning setbacks into comeback. So the biggest thing that you need to focus on is, how do you close this gap? And as you can see in the letter Hey here, you see this gap here. And this gap is responsible for people, being in a position where they're not motivated, to turn a setback into a comeback. They're having the wrong thoughts. They're having the wrong, they're thinking the wrong things about themselves. They're in a homeless situation, and they, can't, seem to, get themselves out of that situation. In other words, the gap is there. If you're working with returning citizens, guess what? You have to close that gap. Many organizations that are working with returning citizens, coming from a prison situation, they're providing great services, but they fail to close the gap. And if you fail to close the gap, then it's going to be difficult to reduce recidivism. And you want to make sure that you're able to develop the skill set on closing that personal growth gap. And that's the reason why having that partnership with the PDI is going to be extremely important. So now let's unpack the letter Hey. The horizontal line on the top represent our thoughts. Thoughts are constant. We're constantly thinking about something. It's hard to stop thinking unless you're practicing, meditation or something. But thoughts are constant. Then we have the vertical line that symbolizes speech. Speech is on the up and down vertical line, because speech has volume. Sometimes we talk too much. Sometimes we just don't talk enough. And then we have the other disconnected vertical line, which represent our actions. And as you can see, the actions are disconnected from the thoughts and the speech. So here's the deal. You're working with clients who have good thoughts, after they engage with your services, they have a good language after they engage with the services, but they're struggling to help their actions line up with what they're thinking and speaking. This is the struggle. This is the liability that that all of those individuals have, that you have to address, because you're on the front line. So the gap is the liability. That's the liability, that's responsible for people not turning setbacks into comeback. And we need to make sure that we address that gap. That's the reason why the PDI resources are extremely important, because we're the only organization in the world that understands how to address that gap. So speakers motivate to close the gap. Preachers preach to close the gap. Coaches offer accountability to close the gap. and organizations provide training to close the gap. The challenge to providing social services is the failure to lean into a new level of genius for helping clients close the personal growth gap. So here's the challenge. Many organizations are leaning into the old genius to close that gap. What we have created with our model, we created a new level of genius so that now your organization, your social workers can lean into a new level of genius to help the individuals that you're working with close that gap. And you understand the importance of that now. There's a gap between thought, speech, and action, and it takes purpose development to close that gap. So education and counseling alone, they're good, but it's going to leave clients with great intentions, but weak growth potential to carry out what they learn in classrooms. All right. So it's important for you to be able to, take them from having weak growth potential to being able to give them a strong command for the 4 checkpoints so that now their growth potential can be strong, so that now they can execute what you're teaching them in those classrooms that you're offering, through the services that you are providing. So now let's unpack the checkpoints. Let's connect the checkpoints to the liability. All right. So the checkpoints provide the genius for closing the personal growth gap. And as you can see, there's our model again. Our model now shows up in that gap. Before the PDI resources, your organization, you don't have any resources to close that gap. Now, when you build that partnership with the PDI, now you're going to have a very powerful solution to close that gap. You're going to have that new level of genius instead of that old level of genius. So to help people show up, to be their best, you must know their position on all 4 checkpoints. That's the reason why this presentation is important, because it's going to show you how to recognize their position on the 4 checkpoints and then recognize your position on the checkpoints as well. So let's unpack the 4 checkpoints. Number 1, people must have a clear path for rebuilding reconstruction relationships between who they are and their environment. Now, I have a question that I need to ask you. What mechanism are you using to help your client rebuild the reconstruction relationships between who they are and their environment? Typically, you don't have anything in place for that. That's a specific skill set that we teach here at the Purpose Development Institute. We teach individuals how to rebuild those reconstruction relationships. It's something that I had to learn in the trenches. I didn't read it in a book. I had to write the book about it. My wife and I, my business partner, Dr. Lily and I, we had to do the research about it. So we have the research to address that particular checkpoint. Number 2, people must have skills to reverse the effects of PDD. Every client that you work with, they are coming through your doors with purpose deficit disorder, and you're going to provide a service to them. And guess what? They're going to leave your doors with PDD. Now, I have another question. What mechanism do you have to reverse the effects of PDD? You don't have that, because that's what we provide here at the Purpose Development Institute. PDD, basically intensify that personal growth liability that your clients are working with. In other words, they're working with an inefficient model, and having this model is going to allow them to be more efficient in reversing the effects of PDD. You're going to find out how important that is to your clients turning their setback into a comeback. Because if they don't reverse the effects of PDD, then guess what? The setback is going to be an extended period of time in their life. Checkpoint 3, people must have a blueprint for cracking the Master Purpose Code. See, in corporations and many other organizations around the world, we want people to be their best. And many organizations are having to crack the whip to get people to be their best. But you know that that's not something that you can do in your organization. But you can get more out of people when you understand how to crack the Master Purpose Code. So we give you the skill set so that now the people that you're working with, they can show up to be a better version of themselves. They can show up to turn their setback into a comeback. Each day in my setback, I had to keep showing up. I had to keep showing up to turn my setback into a comeback. And that's what you want people to be able to do, is to understand how they can crack the Master Purpose Code to show up and to be able to execute that as well. Checkpoint 4, people must develop the quality to sustain a strong sense of purpose in the human experience. See, the reason why, many people are in these setbacks, and the setbacks are, have become an extended period of time, because they don't have a strong sense of purpose. They do not know how to sustain that strong sense of purpose in the human experience. That's a skill set. So what do you have in place for that? You don't have anything. And that's the reason why this partnership with the PDI is going to be extremely important, because now you'll be able to provide that. So now we're going to unpack the purpose business. We talked about the checkpoints. We talked about how the checkpoints are connected to the liability. So now it's time for us to activate the people business. I'm going to say the purpose business. So the people business requires developing skills for the purpose business. So now you know that you're in the people business. So now it's helping you transition into the purpose business. Now there's something happens in the purpose business. All right. It's going to help you rebuild the structural integrity of purpose and close the personal growth gap. This is what your clients need. They need resources to rebuild and to close, to rebuild and to close, to rebuild the structural integrity of purpose and to close the personal growth gap. All right. Now you understand why you need to embrace the purpose business. Yes, you are in the business of providing social services, but you're also in the purpose business. So in the purpose business, there's a phenomenon that occurs. Number one, the structural integrity of purpose have been ripped apart in your clients. And now you must rebuild that. You must have a program to help them rebuild that structural integrity. And then you need to help them close the personal growth gap. All right, so let's explain the purpose business one more time as we close it out. It's the science of discovering purpose beyond what people do for a living so that the PDI SMART model can be fully integrated into the human experience. So here's the deal. Your clients are working with an inefficient model. And now you want to make sure that they can fully integrate the PDI SMART model into the human experience. See, they are in the human experience. And the last thing that you want is for that experience that got them into the setback to turn into an experiment. That's the last thing that you want. This is when people fall through the cracks, when they become an experiment. Then they're going to experiment with trying to find meaning over here, trying to find meaning over there. You want to make sure that you can fully integrate this model into the human experience. So purpose development is the science, but beyond what people do for a living. We created the largest body of content in the world for rebuilding the structural integrity of purpose. You can't go anywhere else and find the amount of content and research that we put into, this process, spending tens of thousands of dollars and hours, into building this model. So it is the model, for, rebuilding the structural integrity of purpose so that now clients can reach their highest growth potential. So now they can get rid of that liability, that liability that's keeping them from turning a setback into a comeback. Now you have a resource on deck that will be able to help them make that transition from the inefficient model to a model more efficient. So purpose development is the frontline defense against the meaning crisis. So you can't have people walk through your doors to engage in your services and have them leave the doors, and not have a frontline defense for the meaning crisis. It doesn't make sense. They need a frontline defense for the meaning crisis, you see, and that's the reason why building that partnership with the PDI Smart Coaching Community is going to be important on that checkpoint. Checkpoint 2, purpose development is the solution for reversing the effects of PDD. Now you have a solution for that, because prior to, the PDI, you don't have a solution. Now you will have a solution when you engage in purpose development resources. Number 3, purpose development provides the blueprint for cracking the master purpose code. So we take the guesswork out of cracking this code so that now you don't have to crack the whip to cause people to show up, to show up and be the better version of themselves, and that's what you certainly need in social services. You want people to show up and be a better version of themselves by cracking the master purpose code. Number 4, purpose development reveals the 2 systems of the soul that are responsible for sustaining meaningful excellence in the human experience. Now, let me go back to my story. All right. My story, again, I had this model. There are millions of people that don't have this model. And one thing I know about this model is that this model will help individuals bring those systems of the soul back online that's responsible for meaningful excellence. See, you're working with people and they come in through your doors, those systems of the soul that's responsible for meaningful excellence, they're offline. So you don't want to just bring them in and have them engage in your services and you send them back out the doors with those two systems offline. That is not a good look for your organization. That's not a good look for them, because we got to make sure that we're providing a service that's going to help them turn their setback into a comeback. Now we need to make sure that those systems are online so that they can turn those setbacks into a comeback. So now you understand the importance of being in the people business. You have to activate the purpose business. You see, when people come into your organization to engage in your resources, then it's your opportunity to activate the purpose business. You don't want them to go back out into the world, because the world is designed, the human experience is designed to undermine that sense of purpose. Then you want to make sure that that sense of purpose has been activated, because they are engaging with your organization as well. Can you see the effect that your organization can have, when dealing with people that have had setbacks and then being able to turn those setbacks into comebacks? Wow, you're going to be providing a very powerful resource to individuals that found themselves in a precarious situation. So, in closing, here's a thought that you need to remember. A person's degree of success in the future is dependent on the degree of purpose in the present. The biggest thing that you can provide and within your organization is to help people increase their degree of purpose in the moment, because that's the biggest help that they need. Remember the thought that I said. I said that providing that need is a noble deed. When you're helping people, you're doing something noble. All right, but you want to do something that's going to help them basically change their world. See, when I give them that degree of purpose in that moment, now I'm giving them something to change their world. I'm taking them from an inefficient model to a model that is more efficient now. By helping them increase their degree of purpose in the moment, then they're going to be able to increase their degree of success for the future, which really is a testament to the power that your organization can provide. So every social service organization need the services of a certified purpose development coach to help clients rebuild the structural integrity of purpose. Now, we need to make sure that you understand what you need to do at this point. What are the next steps? All right, the next step is you need to let us help you integrate this model into your social services. All right, we can do it two ways. We can do it by basically training someone within your organization to be a certified purpose development coach. And we can train those social workers within your organization to understand how to provide this service, in a very powerful level as well. And, so there's several ways, several training pathways that we created to work with your organization. And what I need you to do is to go to our website and schedule a free discovery call. Go to www.pdiatl.com/event. Make sure you visit our calendar and put some time on the calendar so we can get started with helping you equip your organization with resources to help individuals turn their setback into a comeback. I look forward to working with you.